All right, this one's a bit of a funny one, I think. This is Amazon SageMaker Pipelines now supports testing of machine learning workflows in your local environment. Now, I'll put this article in the chat for anyone who's following along. Okay, this to me seems a bit backwards. SageMaker Pipelines is a tool that helps you build machine learning pipelines that take advantage of direct SageMaker integration. Pipelines now supports creating and testing pipelines on your local machine, e.g. your computer, to clarify what local means. Which they should, right? You say, wait, am I reading this right? You mean local as in my local region? No, they're saying the actual physical piece of hardware on your desk.
Correct.
So with this launch, you can test SageMaker pipelines, scripts, and parameters compatibility locally before running them on SageMaker in the cloud. Yeah, so why would they do this? I mean, it seems obviously it is a cloud native setup. SageMaker is meant to be on the cloud and not locally. Yeah. This seems like, we discussed this beforehand. Is this, how do they say? Is this kind of pandering to people who have requested this? I mean, obviously this is not the direction they want to go in the long run. But why move this particular step locally?
Actually, they've done a number of services where they've started supporting local debugging and development. And I do agree with you that this feels like pandering to the developers who are reluctant to adopt all these cloud native tools in a cloud native way where you don't have to do stuff on your local machine. I think the analogy that I can give you is the cloud native IDEs, the likes of DevSpaces, Gitpod, code spaces, and so on. All of them have so much reluctance from developers. Somehow they feel like if they're not using their local IDE, they're not doing real world development. And that just feels messed up in terms of logic. In this particular case, all these notebooks and all these pipelines and stuff, if they're making it available locally, yeah, it feels like diluting the value. Like, why would you want to keep stuff local? It just adds more complexity. It adds more variables. It adds more, failure scenarios. Like, the setup that you have local is not the same as the setup that you have for your pipelines in the cloud.
Yeah, that's exactly. They have to do architectures, all this other stuff now.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't really understand why someone might want to do this. By the way, I still have a very skewed view of how things should be. For me, for example, even IDEs being local is virtually blasphemy at this point, given all the tools that are out there. You shouldn't have to launch your local IDE anymore. And therefore, when someone says that you can do all these pipeline stuff locally, I cringe. I cringe that you just use a really messy machine with messed up configuration to decide how your production workloads should operate and then debug it there. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It seems so. Why would you want to do this? It seems really backwards. I mean, maybe you'd say, okay, well, we already bought all these brand new MacBook Pros for the team, so we need to figure out how to get some mileage out of them. And this is being friendly, I suppose. It's a bit odd. And yeah. I guess this is, so then going to the rating of this article, it's, I would really know, they don't really say why you'd want to do this.
I am pretty sure that a lot of developers came to them and said, oh, unless we can do things locally, we are not going to use this service. And so they were kind of pandering to that. I have no doubt that was the scenario.
And
I actually think that if I were the product manager of this particular product, I wouldn't add that as a feature, even if the developers were asking for it. It just adds too much complexity.
Yeah, it's just going to make problems later on.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to deal with architectures. What about when you want to train with GPUs, and then someone has an ATI, someone has a Radeon or an NVIDIA? Yeah, this is fraught with issues. So
correct.
I'll say I'm inclined to give this a okay. In terms of an article, I mean, it doesn't give an example of why you'd want to do this, and I guess it's from an engineering standpoint, it's kind of cool in the sense that it's a new ability that didn't exist before, so that's, I guess, a good thing.
Yeah.
But on the overhead, I want to give this a complexity.
So I think when I give a rating for this one, it's less to do with this this article or this blog post in particular, but more to do with, I think the score that I'm about to give, or that we are about to give, is I think a reflection of the product management for this particular feature. I would actually count it as adding complexity and not something that I would have picked. Of all the things to do on SageMaker, trying to support local was not what I thought is a value add.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think that this exists, and now we have to support it. And the support forums are going to fill up about why this doesn't work on my particular bespoke configuration.
Correct. Yeah, and there is just so many variables to take care of on the local machine. Like, yeah, it makes no sense to me.
All right. Well, I think then I'm going to throw out the two clouds, unless you can think of another cloud to give it.
No, I think that seems fine and fair for this particular one.
Well, I guess thinking about this and thinking about the dangers of running things locally, I wanted to do a kind of a fun transition segment. There was a neat article on Hacker News recently, and it's based on it was from the author of a bit of software that I use called Lunar, and I'll put this in the chat. So Lunar is, oops, I just unplugged my keyboard. Lunar is a brightness adjustment software for Mac OS, and it handles a lot of edge cases. For example, sometimes if you have a batch of monitors, the factory will get lazy and it will put the same serial number on all of them. And this is an issue because when you have a left and a right, your Mac can't tell which one is which. Well, one interesting issue that got discussed in the comments is that there's some known issue with monitors that have very poorly shielded HDMI cables. And the issue is that when you sit on a standard office chair, there's one metal cylinder moving inside of another. And this situation can sometimes induce an electromagnetic spike. And if you have poorly shielded video cables, this can actually your cable, or you can disturb the input. And they've been able to reproduce this. So I'll add this, what it looks like. Notice this engineer here is sitting, and as he gets up, his screens turn off. We can come back here. There you go. So they're on. They sit down and they turn off again. And so I guess the point of why we bring this up, in addition to it just being kind of fascinating from a nerdy tech perspective, is just that with local setups, there are so many edge cases that you have to deal with. And it's this person who was talking about the monitors, just kind of, it was an interesting blog post because he talked about, here's all of these different edge cases that have come up over the years of monitors with identical serial numbers, the HDMI issue, all this other stuff. And so that's why we always encourage use managed services, because then you have this great team that's taking care of all this stuff for you. Yeah. And we post the next day or two a clip from the talk you gave in Anaheim about tier 2 of the cost savings, which is use managed services. This is, why would you want to deal with all these little edge cases when you don't have to? Yeah. And so you can pay someone else at much bigger scale to deal with them.
I agree. Completely agree.
All right. Well, I posted the article in the chat. It's a fun article, so have a good read of that, and then you go on and use Aurora. All right. Well, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the next article about Lex.